Whoa. Watch where you step. Some of these boards are really falling.
So, Uncharted. It's one of the best-selling video game franchises of all time. Every game in the main series hoarded accolades like they were some kind of ancient treasures, and most of them deserved it. But every family has a problem child. And in a twist that every younger sibling probably saw coming, Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception, is this franchise's problem. Welcome to Nerdstalgic Gaming. Thanks so much for tuning in, and before we get too deep into today's topic, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can keep up to date with all of our newest releases.
I see great things in our future, kid. Great things.
Before its release in 2007, the first Uncharted game looked to the public like a pretty straightforward action-adventure title. Nobody really expected there to be any more depth or thought put into this PS3 release than Indiana Jones type looking for treasure and shoots bad guys. But with game director Amy Hennig and the newly minted writer Neil Druckmann attached to the project, Uncharted: Drake's Fortune turned into something more. But we're not here to give you a full rundown on why Drake's Fortune is great. You already know that the gameplay mechanics, level design, story, and characters were unmatched in the genre at the time, and that winning formula paved the way for the even more revered sequel, Uncharted 2: Among Thieves, which improved on just about everything from the first game. But the success of these first two games actually resulted in a decision that nearly ruined the franchise.
I'm sorry, am I sensing some history here?
With more industry experience, employees, and money than ever before, Naughty Dog did something they'd never done in company history: split up the core dev team into two distinct groups. Since its inception in 1984, the Naughty Dog dev team only ever focused on creating one game at a time, but now their attention was divided. One group was tasked with making Uncharted 3, and the other? Well, they'd be working on a little game called The Last of Us. So while the size of the development team remained largely the same, the actual makeup of the team did not. The decision to bisect Naughty Dog meant that Neil Druckmann would no longer be part of Uncharted's development. Instead, he and many other franchise mainstays moved over to the Last of Us team. Both games were plagued with development issues, but Uncharted 3's were noticeably worse.
Man, this got out of hand in a hurry.
In fact, the Uncharted team was struggling so hard, they had to pull people off the Last of Us team in order to meet the game's promised release date of November 1st, 2011. And even that didn't stop Uncharted 3 from almost shipping as a broken mess. If it hadn't been for Naughty Dog's vice president Kristen Geerling, the dev team might have never learned that on older PS3 models, Uncharted 3 was virtually unplayable. According to Geerling, when he took the game home before release, he noticed enemies going invisible, the ocean turning blood red, and entire game levels straight up missing.
Oh, crap.
The team had to pull together a critical bug fix only 2 days before the game was set to launch. Had they shipped the game without that patch, all the credibility of the Uncharted series would have been thrown out the window. But they managed to fix it in time, because this is Naughty Dog we're talking about here, and the game thankfully released relatively bug-free.
I've had more than enough of those damn things.
Wait, you knew about them?
With Uncharted 2's greatness still fresh in the minds of the gaming public, it was hard to overlook just how similar, yet utterly worse, Uncharted 3 was when compared to its predecessor. The combat was often a slog to get through. The dev team apparently attempted to fix some of the aiming issues from U2, but actually made it a lot worse for a good chunk of the player base. And you could really feel how on rails the story was when you were jumping plot points as fast as Nathan jumps platforms. But it was U3's heavy emphasis on big action set pieces that really killed the story, which ended up being largely recycled from U2. You know, you gotta wonder how much of it was unconscious and how much of it was intentional to really try and bank off the success of Uncharted 2.
Oh, okay, I see where this is going.
When Uncharted 3 first came out, VentureBeast did an interview with game director Justin Richmond that kind of perfectly illustrates the main issue with the game. When asked how development differed from U2 to U3, Richmond had this to say: "I think the biggest thing in the process this time was just us trying to figure out bang for your buck. We really went for it on scenes like the cruise ship. For example, we had to make sure that the waves hitting the cruise ship were right. You would have to flip over and fall 90 degrees or 180 degrees on the cruise ship, with the sense of vertigo. At the same time, we were trying to make an interesting story and a nuanced story." That sure is a lot of words about action and then a single throwaway sentence about the story. and that's really emblematic of the Uncharted 3 experience. There's a whole lot of emphasis on a few big, important action set pieces, and everything else feels like an afterthought. In their attempt to make a more nuanced story, they actually muddied everything up. The villains are more complicated in U3 than they were in the previous games, but they don't feel powerful. They feel convoluted and unthreatening because we're not really given enough time to understand them and their motivations. Instead, we get pulled from scene to scene in a pretty jarring way, so the game can show off its next big action sequence. Now, that isn't to say that Uncharted 3 is a truly awful game. It isn't, not by a long shot. While we didn't get nearly enough of it, the dynamic between Drake and Sully was even better than it was in the first two games. And yes, the set pieces were awesome. Navigating through the sinking cruise ship and falling out of the plane are undeniably iconic moments in the series. And sure, there was still plenty of platforming fun and puzzly action, but the whole game felt unfocused. It didn't make any major improvements to the series, and in some ways, dare I say, it even took a step backwards. Overall, it was a safe bet. But if the Naughty Dog dev team should have learned anything from the Uncharted series, it's that you only win big when you take big risks. And it seems they actually did learn that lesson, because Uncharted 4: A Thief's End is arguably the best in the franchise. Had Naughty Dog just looked at the commercial success of Uncharted 3 and decided that they could keep doing the bare minimum as far as new installments go, the series would have been dead in the water. Imagine if Uncharted 4 had come out and it was just another retread of everything we had already seen in a previous game. Just another episodic action movie-esque adventure with quippy dialogue, but this time on the PS4. It would have felt boring and stale. Sure, it would have been serviceable, but it wouldn't have been the dark, introspective, thrilling ride that is A Thief's End. And we only got that because Naughty Dog decided to take risks again. In fact, when Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley took over the project, they scrapped about 8 months of work on Uncharted 4 and turned it into what it is today. And if they hadn't done that, it's very likely that we would have had another U3 on our hands.
You okay in there? You hurt?
Just my pride.
We know now that Uncharted 4 was the result of an incredible amount of crunch, and that's a whole discussion that we aren't having today, but the point remains. They made changes, took risks, and improved essentially every facet of the series with U4. You know, to me, it seems like when Naughty Dog decided to split up the dev teams, The Last of Us really got the A team and left Uncharted 3 in the dust. Or the sand.
Hating the sand.
Just like the parent of a problem child, I've got to say that I expected more from Uncharted 3. I wasn't mad, I was just disappointed. But that's all we've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, and now we want to know, how do you feel about Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception? Where is it on your ranking of the series? Let us know in the comments, and while you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with everything that's happening at Nerdstalgic Gaming.